Okay, I'm recording right now, I think. Yeah, to my computer. All right, welcome everybody to today's workshop, Menopause Fat Loss Over 40. Before we even jump in, fun little
Hi.
question to test out the chat box for everyone. Instead of asking you where you're from, let me know what time it is where you are right now. So it's 7:30 p.m. Eastern. What time is it where you are? Throw that in the chat because I'd love to see what kind of time zones people are in, and we don't have to call out where people are from, specifically, but just time zones. So we got 7:30 same time zone, 9:30 a.m. in Sydney, nice. 7:30, 4:30. So we're talking Pacific. Throw it in the chat, everybody. I wanna see you guys. You know how to find it, know how to use it. 6:30, 7:30, 7:30. All right, cool. And that's 19:30 military time, right? I had to do the quick math. 9:30 a.m. Friday. Yes. Oh yeah, 9:30 a.m. Friday, right, in Sydney. Cool. All right. I got a lot of things set up here, so let me just share my screen. Get my notes good to go. All right. All right. Thumbs up. Yes, you can see the screen. Is that a yes? Okay, good. All right. All right, so let's get started here. We are talking about a topic that is, I guess, really, really hot right now, but it's hot because I think there's a lot of misinformation. I think there's a huge swath of people who are my age or older, and obviously I'm a man to state the obvious, but if you're a woman, this is the time, in your as early to mid 30s for some women, but generally your 40s to 50s, we consider the perimenopause phase into menopause. And there's a lot of information about how do I handle all the symptoms that come along with this, things like weight loss resistance and body composition changes, as well as all the other neurological symptoms and hot flashes and everything else. And what do I do? Like that, the challenge is, what do I do? So I want to ask you in the chat before we get into anything, why did you sign up for this workshop? What are you hoping to learn? Because I want to make sure that I cover the most important things for you. I have a lot to cover, but I'd like to make it dynamic. And let's see, throw in the chat, why are you here? What are you hoping to learn? I know it'll take a few seconds for folks to write their answers. And if you're watching the replay, by the way, get out a piece of paper or write on your computer and answer the same questions for yourself. Macros for menopause. Okay, cool. Good to know. So we're gonna cover that area generally. We may not get into specific numbers only because it's a very personal thing, but I'm going to leave time for Q&A at the end, and we could actually get into specifics for people if we want to do that. Wanting to learn more in general about menopause, being in WWPU, that's our coaching program. I'm understanding the benefits of protein intake, etc. Okay, make sure I'm doing all I can to maximize health. All right. Anything else? Anything like very specific? Any things that you've heard out there on podcasts, especially Instagram? All right, make the most of my time at the gym. Avoid menopausal weight gain. Okay. All right. So that's a good start. And it makes sense. It's totally consistent with just even scratching the surface of what we're going to cover tonight. My next question for you is, and it's not going to be all questions, don't worry. What is one thing about being over 40, or really whatever your age you are, but I assume most of you are over 40 if you sign up for this, one thing you think is holding you back with your health or fitness? And it could be fat loss, it could be anything. One thing about being over 40, you know what I mean? Like, so not just in general. I keep hearing any ill health, pains, etc. at my age is due to menopause. Okay. So health issues caused by menopause because of the hormonal changes. What else? What is one thing about being over 40 you think right now is holding you back? And if I see no answers, then everybody's telling me that they've got the perfect plan and everything's working for them. Mobility. Wait, is that? Oh, I see. I think Julie, you replied to my note taker, so it went up at the top. That's okay. That's okay. Like it popped up for me. Um, I'm here that I always hear hormones make it impossible to lose weight. Okay. Yeah. Huge. That's a huge one. Time and money, bad information. Go ahead. Call people out. I'm just kidding. General aches and pains, seem to get injured more often. You know, I can relate to that. So I don't think it's menopause for me. All right. Understanding hormones and how they are impacted. Belly fat gain seems unavoidable. We're going to address that. All the information is sorted through conflicting info, laughing emoji, maybe to something I said. I try to be funny every now and then. It doesn't always land. Okay. So, the last, let's see, I have like a couple more questions that I want to pepper you with, and then we'll get into it. Low energy. All right. So the last question I have is, I thought of another thing. I was asked my doctor if I was in perimenopause. She said, no. Misinformation in the medical field, how to know if it's starting. Oh, that's a huge one. I wasn't going to address that directly, but like medical gaslighting is a big thing. I get it. And we did an episode on that. And there's this like, some doctors have an age in their head. Like before this age, it's impossible. It's your hormones. It's got to be something else, and obviously we know that it's different by individual, and you could have hormonal issues very early. I mean, you can have it as young as a child. But yeah, of course you could experience perimenopause hormonal changes early, like in your 30s. Medical gaslighting is so real. Yeah, exactly. And we did an episode about that not too long ago. Check that out if you haven't. Okay, so last question I have. How many months out of the year do you spend dieting? Let's be honest. Out of 12 months every year, how much do you spend dieting? Or attempting to diet, or whatever you think of as dieting?
My headphones things.
Oh, okay, just listen to it.
Oh, let me put it on mute. Hey, Courtney, I'm just muting you. All right. So how many months each year... how many months out of the year do you spend dieting? Okay, we have 9 to 10, 12. All right, so always dieting, 2 to 4 months out of the year. All right, that's maybe closer to where we'd all love to be. 6 months, I stop and stop, or start and stop, I assume you meant. Seems like all the time, 12, all year except weekends. That's a good answer. So far this year, 0. Before that, it was constant. All right. Prior to this year, probably always trying to, and then 6 months. And I'm hoping those of you that said like much less, maybe you've been taking some actions, or maybe listen to my podcast. I don't know. I don't want to take credit. Hopefully you're doing the things that some of which we're going to talk about today. Okay. All right, good. I'm just always conscious of eating well, so don't feel I'm really dieting, but now I'm counting macros. I don't think of that as dieting. No, it's a good point. I mean, there's perspective here. If I were to be specific, I mean like trying to cut calories and trying to lose weight. I do listen to your podcast. Thanks for all the info. Cool. All right. So just real quick introduction, since I haven't done that, in case you don't know who I am. My name is Philip Pape, and there's really 2 things that I'm big into right now in this space. The first is the podcast called Wits and Weights, and that is the QR code to check it out. If you haven't heard of it and you're like, what is that? You'll definitely find a lot of value there. We're at almost 300 total episodes and almost 200 numbered episodes. So by numbered, I mean big, meaty episodes, either with a guest or by myself, where we dive into topics from a science-based perspective. And the whole purpose of the podcast, which is aligned with today's workshop, is using science to do things smarter and more time efficiently, so you don't have to get frustrated and feel like you're spinning your wheels. And for a lot of you, I bet there's an element of doing too much and then not getting the result, right? So that's one of the things we're going to talk about. And then the other thing is just same name as my company. I'm the founder and head coach of Wits and Weights, and we provide nutrition coaching. So I am a certified nutrition coach, and I have training in thyroid health, reproductive health, mindset, and a few other things, including positive psychology. And I help people one-on-one and in our group coaching program, one of which is tied to a bonus that you're going to get today. Okay, so let's jump right in and talk about what we're covering today. And then along the way, I might ask you some questions and try to leave some room at the end for Q&A. Let me get my screen out of the way. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is when we talk about peri and postmenopause, what do we mean? I think most of you probably know the definition, but just in case, menopause is defined as it's literally the day when you've gone 12 consecutive months without a menstrual period, without a menstrual cycle. And typically it occurs around ages 45 to 55, but it can vary. And all the years leading up to that point where there's some decline in hormones, usually the big ones like estrogen and progesterone and testosterone are called perimenopause. And that's really kind of up to you and your symptoms and your health as to what that is. It's not for your doctor to tell you. And that can last usually 4 to 8 years, but it could be 15 years. It's a big range. And of course, postmenopause is just menopause starts and goes for the rest of your life. Now, of course, women can experience a loss of menstrual cycle for other reasons, including, medical reasons, health reasons, and like amenorrhea that comes from extreme dieting, or like if you're a bodybuilding or physique competitor, for example. I'm going to mute. Let me see. Can everyone just go on mute for now? All right. There's some background noise from somebody. I'm trying to find who it is. Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm just going to mute. Oh, we're good. All right. And I won't call your name out. Okay. So during peri and postmenopause, of course, women experience significant hormonal changes and they impact body composition. And that's what we're going to focus on today is body composition. We're not even really going to talk about all the neurological symptoms, hot flashes, anxiety, changes in vision, in taste, PMS. And I don't mean to scare you. You know all this and you've either experienced it or women who have. But the cool thing is oftentimes those symptoms are directly tied to the hormones not being supported and are sometimes alleviated. It's often extensively through the changes we're going to talk about today. So it all plays together. So let's talk quickly about so I kind of jumped ahead. Here's what we're covering today. How they affect your body composition. And then we're going to talk about the 3 fat loss myths holding you back, that if you believe these myths and you take action on them, they could be causing you to spin your wheels. And we're going to unravel them, show you some real life examples, what not to do, what to do. We're going to bust the myth and then give you a plan going forward at the end. And by the way, I can only cover so much in an hour. So that's why I'm giving you a guide and a checklist kind of plan to go with this afterward as additional resources. All right. So now we jump into the changes caused during peri and postmenopause. And I want to be clear that these are the things that will happen no matter what, but the extent to which they happen and the amount that they're mitigated by other things you do is can be significant. Meaning if you don't do anything, if you have a sedentary life, you're not doing the things the right way, these things can definitely cause significant negative outcomes, right, for your health. On the other hand, if you take control, which is what we're going to talk about today, is empowering you to do things to take control, what you do can far outweigh what the hormones are doing, if that makes any sense. Because a lot of what you're doing right now is only amplifying what the hormones would be doing, if that kind of makes sense. So let's start with estrogen. Estrogen fluctuates and then declines. Lower estrogen leads to decreased bone mineral density, osteoporosis. It also reduces collagen, which affects your skin elasticity, wrinkles, sagging skin, things like that. And then it also causes a shift in fat distribution. So this is the dreaded belly fat, right? We know for a fact that fat accumulation around the abdomen increases with the decline in estrogen. All things equal when you don't do anything else, instead of the hips and the thighs. So it tends to create more belly fat. Then we have progesterone, which also declines. And from a body composition perspective, the biggest impact here is it reduces your muscle protein synthesis. So when you hear how like women need more protein than men as you age, and there's this thing called anabolic resistance, it's bigger in women than men because of the progesterone. It also contributes to some water retention and bloating, which can affect how you perceive your body composition. I don't think that's as critical a factor when we talk about, fat versus muscle. Then we have testosterone, right, which we think of typically with men. However, I don't know if you've listened to Karen Martell on my show. We did a whole episode on testosterone, and she reminded us that it's the thing you have the most of, even though it's much smaller than what men have. And it also declines, and that leads to reduced muscle mass, reduced strength, decreased libido, decreased energy levels, all of those things. Cortisol, the stress hormone, also one you're probably very familiar with, gets elevated. And that's due to 2 things. That's due to the hormones, so all the other hormones kind of cascading, but also the lifestyle factors. So this one's kind of in an interesting bucket because it can be affected regardless of whether you're in perimenopause. You can be in your 20s and still have high cortisol, and men can have high cortisol. depending on lifestyle, but the hormones exacerbate it. And chronically high cortisol increases your abdominal fat storage as well, which is why poor sleep can lead to more belly fat storage because of cortisol. It's also tends to be partly why a lot of alcohol consumption leads to more belly fat because of cortisol. I didn't know if you knew that. It increases the catabolism in your body. That's the breakdown of tissue in your body when you have high cortisol, because your body's trying to find resources wherever it can. So it's like, I'm just going to break down muscle. And then it increases your insulin resistance. So speaking of insulin resistance, the hormonal changes can also increase the risk of this, in addition to the cortisol, in addition to the lack of muscle mass. And it makes it harder for your body to use glucose effectively, right? This is what leads to high blood sugar, increased risk of type 2 diabetes, and then it contributes to weight gain and difficulty losing weight. Like, this actually could be a very big cause of why you have weight loss resistance. Of course, it all comes down to metabolism at the end of the day. We'll get to that. And so when you combine all of these, what do you get? You get decreased muscle mass and strength, increased belly fat accumulation, reduced bone density, and potential weight gain, difficulty losing weight. So, and that's it. And end of workshop. I'm just going to scare you and we're just going to end there. No. Is this a lost cause? Of course not. Of course not, right? So let's jump into it and start with one of the 3 myths. Now, I could have included 100 myths today, to be honest, and I'm trying to pick the big ones that everybody's familiar with. So, and as we go along, use the chat if you have questions of the things I bring up, or you heard something different, or you've heard something related to this that you want me to address, and I'll be happy to. All right, so I'm going to be monitoring the chat as well. So the diet myth is a few things, all right? The first thing is that eating less by cutting food groups is how you lose fat, right? And carbs is the big one, but it could be restricting other foods as well, like sugar. You know, like I have to reduce my sugar, or whatever else you can think of that you've cut. The other part of this myth is that calories are all that matter. And you might be surprised to hear me say that, because I've talked about energy balance, or I can tell you about it now as well. Like, energy balance is the idea that you have to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight on the scale. But that doesn't mean you could just eat anything and then have an easy time of doing that. So the key is not energy balance itself, but from a lifestyle and behavior perspective, can you actually get the calories you need without suffering, without cutting, without being dieting all the time, right? That's the key. And there's certain types of calories that'll benefit you more than others from a fat loss and body composition perspective. Also, that you need to eat low carb as a woman over 40. I've heard this so many times. I don't know where it started, but it's like, well, now you're 40 and you're a woman, get those carbs out. Just get them out. They're evil. They're evil, and you have to eat low carb, and then everything's just going to magically work. And then there's also a myth that you should use intermittent fasting. Like, it's still pervasive for hormones specifically. I mean, there's a lot of claims for intermittent fasting related to health and metabolic health, but hormones. So I'm kind of lumping these all together into the diet myth. You might have others that you want to pile onto this list. And if you do, feel free to throw it in the chat, but I'm just going to go on. Meet Lillian, right? Lillian. So these slides are going to have a lot of information on them. But it's real life. Okay. Lillian cut calories to 1,400. Now you might say that's not that low, or that's fine, or whatever. She didn't really have any control of her diet, and she was constantly trying to eat this amount and not losing weight and not getting what she wants. So it wasn't just that she cut it for a diet and then that was too low. It was that's how she was eating all the time. Her form of training was body pump and spinning. And body pump is, I believe it involves weights, but it's mainly endurance and high rep type training without any progression or anything like that. A poor relationship with food, very common, setting for yourself rules like I can't have cake, I can't have chocolate, good and bad foods. She did keto for a while. She had very low sleep quality, right? Not always due to faults of her own, but like everything else was just piling together. And even if she got enough sleep, it was low quality. And she wasn't gaining muscle. So she was losing weight on the scale, but not getting any better with her, how she looked and felt. Right. So what did she think the problem was? And these questionnaires come from like, when you ask somebody how things are going and you kind of have a conversation and ask about their history, and occasionally they'll throw in nuggets like, but I'm doing this, right? And it's those are the gold nuggets of, oh, okay, there's an assumption here that this is going to work. And that's where the myths come from. And if you're acting on those myths, that's where the frustration can come in if it doesn't actually work. For sleep health, if you snore and people complain about it and get checked out for sleep apnea, getting treated for that was a game changer. Yes, sure, absolutely. And sleep apnea can occur with extreme dieting, believe it or not just with excess fat and muscle around the neck. So again, another fun fact. Okay, so bad genetics. So these are all the myths for her specifically. Bad genetics despite eating quote unquote healthy. Always having to hit a number on the scale. Okay, raise your hand if this has been a thing for you ever in the past where all you cared about was, I got to get to this number. When I was 22, I was this. I want to get back to that. I've heard it time and time again in discovery calls, like, I just want to get to this number. All right. Not enough hours of cardio. She thought she wasn't doing enough cardio and she wasn't disciplined or consistent enough. I saw somebody post on Twitter threads just today and they said like, is discipline the problem, or is a plan or do you need a plan that doesn't require discipline, or a plan that allows you to be disciplined? I don't know. I'm butchering it. Anyway, so what was the real problem? I mean, when you looked underneath and you saw the overall set of behaviors, she wasn't eating enough food, right? And we're going to get back to that. What do we mean by that? Too few carbs for her training and performance. Wasn't strength training. That's a big one. Too much cardio. The plan was unsustainable, and she was dieting too frequently. That's why I asked you all how often you are dieting. Okay. So the result is she lost a ton of body fat. She increased her calories by 1,000 and carbs to 300. And some of you not familiar with like the macros I usually work in, the range I work in, that's normal, but it might seem ungodly high to you. Okay. And then lifting weights, and then ditched cardio and able to eat whatever she wants. And ditched cardio literally doesn't do cardio other than walking, which is a totally doable way to live. I mean, we're going to talk about cardio as well. And quote, I feel strong, empowered, and I realize I can go as far as I wanted. So what do we take out of this, right? Just from the diet perspective. Number one, that cutting calories and eliminating foods can backfire on you by creating stress, right? By creating negative emotional relationship with food, by causing you to overeat, by causing your body to clamp down and become less responsive, by causing your hormones to drop, etc. Now, I didn't show all those things, but these are what happened. Now, the quality and balance of calories matter. This is important. So I talked about energy balance. Now I want to drive the point home that if all you were to do was eat more protein and fiber and whole foods and not worry about the rest, 80% whole foods, 20% whatever you want, even if it is pizza, you will see a massive difference in how full you are and how you feel and your skin, right? Like lots more protein will help your skin and your performance and your energy and your sleep and which will then make it easier if you need to go into a fat loss phase and cut calories to do so, and sometimes from a higher level of calories. So quality and balance do matter. And we're going to put all this together at the end, by the way. Maintenance. So the magic of maintenance. Maintenance is where the magic happens. What does that mean? Maintenance calories, the same, eating the amount of calories that you burn. If you want long-term sustainability, you want to be able to eat in a way that you could eat today, tomorrow, next week, a month from now, a year from now. And when you get asked next time, how often are you dieting? You could potentially say 0, potentially, right? And still have the body you want because you're doing all the things. You're eating enough to fuel yourself. You're not overeating where you're gaining extra weight, but you're building muscle and losing fat at the same time, right? We call that body recomp. And this is where the magic happens when you're over 40 and when you've got hormones that are kind of fighting against you a bit. Because hormones, the one thing they don't like is you depriving your body of resources, of energy. The more stress you have, the less you should restrict. So what does this mean? The older you are, the more, you have kids, you have obligations, you're taking care of, ailing parents, right? You have a stressful job, you have financial concerns, nod your head if any of these relate, right? Like you have more stress the older you get, especially into this time of life. The less you should restrict calories because all that stress is just adding to the stress of the calorie restriction. And then spending more time not dieting. So we kind of alluded to this already. It supports everything. It supports your metabolism because you're not constantly suppressing and adapting your metabolism downward. You're letting it thrive and fire. You're letting your cells have all the energy and water they need at the mitochondrial level. So they're just, burning energy, which is what you want. And then you could eat more. And then you could build muscle. And then that's good for your mind too, psychologically and for mental health. Right. And so flexibility and enjoyment that's what's sustainable, right? There are no bad foods. So we're just starting to scratch the surface. I don't know how much of this is surprising to you, new to you, a revelation. Throw it in the chat because again, a lot of you have heard my stuff before. So I want to make sure we're getting you some gold nuggets here. Okay. The second one is the exercise myth. And that has a few things that come up a lot. One is that doing more cardio is the best way to burn fat. Who's heard this one? Or who maybe thinks this one? I don't know. Right? Doing more cardio is the best way, not just to increase your calories, but even to burn fat, during fat loss. Strength training will make you bulky. I thought this would go away, but every single podcast I go on with a woman or vice versa who's on my show, like this comes up. And so I know it's I know it's being said. Yeah, I wish I could get bulky. That's usually my response. I wish I could get bulky. It's very, very hard. Okay. We'll talk about that again. Strength training can overstress your hormones. This is a myth that's out there that strength training is actually somehow bad for you, especially when you're over 40, like lifting heavy can overstress your hormones, and that it's not safe or appropriate. I posted something cheeky this morning. It said lifting weights is not dangerous. Being weak is dangerous. I think I said something like that. So take that for what it's worth. Okay. So we've got Heather, who is doing lots of intermittent fasting and tried all the diets. And you see a common theme, and I've been there, and many of you have probably been there. Right? You've tried the diets because we think that is like, there's a simple prescriptive solution. It's easy because somebody has figured out that these foods are okay, these aren't. And insidiously, they also happen to cause pretty quick weight loss for a lot of people. And that just amplifies their use. But then she had no control or consistency over the diet, even despite doing a diet. She felt frumpy and weak, wasn't eating enough protein or carbs for her body composition goals. She was focused on the scale again and the quick fix, and then poor sleep and a high stress job. And you can't always change your job, but you have to acknowledge it and work with it. And so she thought the problem was hormones, like just fighting against her, like thinking I'm doing a lot of the things right, but regardless, hormones are holding me back. Or not working out hard enough and not dieting hard enough. Like some people, I mean, let's be honest, some of us think we're just not in a big enough deficit. We just have to cut calories further. And sadly, a lot of coaches and online influencers just kind of push that. It's your fault, energy balance, calories in, calories out. You just have to cut calories more, or they'll blame you for like, you don't know how much you're eating or this or that. She thought the problem was cheat days. Now, granted, over-consuming every weekend, like somebody joked, that's the only time they don't diet, definitely contributes to her overall balance, but it's not the only issue. And it's not the fact that you're eating foods you like. And then a muscle imbalance. And I hear a lot of things about muscle imbalances and injuries and anatomical things. And I don't want to say they're used as excuses, but they sometimes hold you back from really pushing as hard as you could because you're not aware of the other solutions to work around it. All right. So what the real problem was, extremely high stress from the job, which just means other things need to maybe come down. So I think of this as like you have a stress bucket, and if that stress bucket is overflowing, nothing's going to help you, lose fat, lose weight, improve your body until you get that down. So if there's anything at all that can get that down and others that can't, you have to focus on the things you can. So extremely high stress, training too many days per week. So yes, doing too much, even though she was lifting, not tracking consistently, not planning ahead. So that was more like for the cheat day thing. Staying up late, which led to poor sleep quality and poor sleep quantity, not fueling her workouts properly, and dieting too hard and too often. You see some overlap. There's a lot of overlap between these three myths. And so I wanted to show this example because she's done a great job of incorporating a building perspective rather than a losing perspective, where, you know, the picture from the left to the right, you might not see a huge difference, but there's definitely muscle definition. And when I look at her rear and side photos as well, you see a lot more muscle definition, and she has a lower body fat at 10 pounds higher on the scale. So I think that's an important concept to keep in mind. She's able to eat a lot more food, right? Dieting on, she could actually lose weight on up to 2,000 calories instead of 1,200. She's tracking, she's meal planning for fuel, meaning she's incorporating protein and carbs as needed to fuel training, not trying to cut those things. Sleep was improved, which is massive. And then lifting fewer days per week, which unlocked a lot of growth as well. So these are, again, we're busting some myths here along the way. Okay. And then so I think the exercise myth busted. Let me see if we have anything in the chat. Okay, you guys are good. Please feel free, if I'm going too fast or you want to throw in questions, please do. So too much cardio increases, guess what? Cortisol. We talked about that as one of the hormones affected during menopause, and now you're only making it worse. You're adding stress. It then becomes catabolic. It breaks down muscle, and then it stalls fat loss, and it just also happens to decrease your metabolism, or at least you don't get any more for it for the time you're putting in. So if you imagine your metabolism as a curve, and the more you do, the higher it goes. At some point, it actually starts to plateau. That's what I'm talking about. You're doing, a half-hour cardio day, then an hour cardio day. Now you're doing an hour and a half cardio day where you're hardly getting anything else for it. Meanwhile, the rest of your body is down regulating. And so that leveling off is actually worse than it even seems, because your body's actually compensating for all the extra cardio you're adding. And it's like, conserve. And now your hormones just drop. So in some senses, doing too much movement, too much cardio, and too much may not be as high a threshold as you think, depending on your other stress, is like being in a ravenously extreme diet, like a physique competition type diet, the symptoms you can get from it. I'm painting a dire picture of like the extreme, but people have to understand cardio is not the way to burn fat. Strength training, however, is only got good things going for it if done to the right amount with enough recovery. So strength training builds your muscle, which burns calories. And then it, most importantly here, when we talk about fat loss, preserves your muscle during fat loss versus just weight loss, right? Just weight on the scale. So whether you are losing weight or kind of body recomping, the protein is important. I actually had somebody reach out to me today and question this and saying like, I don't understand why people need all this protein. And it's okay. I take that as an opportunity to like educate and help them out. But there is still a message out there that like we're pushing too much protein for some reason. And there's even a counter message about low protein being good for longevity, which is very, very, very dangerous. I did do a podcast about it called The Dangers of Low Protein for Longevity. So if you're interested in that, just know it's out there on that topic. Done something on everything by now. I should just stop the podcast because talked about everything. All right. Don't worry. I could talk for years. A mix of weights, strategic cardio, and recovery is optimal. So a mix. So we're going to talk about the right mix in a bit. Overtraining is what worsens imbalances and sabotage results. And I'm gonna be clear right here. This whole hormone thing and menopause and perimenopause, if I had to use one word to describe the biggest impact to all this, it's the word stress. But not the cortisol stress, anything that causes stress. Anything. Overtraining, too much cardio, too much dieting. So if you can kind of unravel in your life what is piling on that stress bucket, you might be able to very quickly get to the opportunities. and you may be in denial about this. I don't know. And this requires some reflection and like, you know, self-honesty and kind of auditing what you're doing. Okay. And by the way, the checklist I'm going to give you has a way to do that later on. Okay. Proper recovery is crucial. Of course, more is not always better. As we saw in the example, going from 5 days a week to 3 days a week actually improved her results. I've had clients as young as in their early 30s that also were just doing too much, and we backed it off 2 days a week, 3 days a week. And all of a sudden, you're able to sleep more, you know, you have less stress, your muscles respond. There's just a breaking point for people, and you don't want to be beyond that, especially not chronically. And then focusing on progress in your training, not burning calories. So I usually try not to use the word exercise. That's what I call this, the exercise myth, but I would say even the word exercise, we should like jettison in favor of training, which is treating your body like a temple that needs to be preserved and built up and last a long time till till your 90s. I mean, we know humans can live up to your 90s. Generally, most people die by the time they're 100. So if you can be functioning at your best in your 90s, like you've done it, that's awesome. So when we say focus on progress, I mean focus on the here and now, today, tomorrow, the next day. What are you changing and going after from an action and performance oriented perspective? And if everything you're doing around with your sleep, your food, everything else doesn't support it, you're not going to progress as effectively. All right. What time is it? Okay, we're good. Only 35 minutes in. The hormone myth. Okay, so this is the third myth, and I left this for the end because this is kind of the outcome of everything we do rather than the input. So if you came to this workshop thinking hormones are causing problems, at the end of this, I want you to come away thinking the problems are causing hormone problems. Like your lifestyle is causing hormone problems, which causes problems. We'll get there. So the hormone myth is that this drop or imbalance in hormones during peri-postmenopause makes losing fat much harder. It's not the hormones themselves. Short of a medical issue or a true large physiological imbalance, which can be addressed with HRT. Okay. And oftentimes you guys are taking, not you guys, I don't mean you, but ladies are taking HRT, which I'm totally in favor of. And you're taking the minimum effective dose you need, but that dose is much higher than it would be if the lifestyle was supporting your hormones. Does that make sense? So like they kind of go hand in hand. If your lifestyle was there, the HRT may drop or be unnecessary in certain cases. So that's where we don't want to turn around cause and effect. And then the other part of the myth is that you have to be on HRT to lose weight or fat. So you run into an issue. I didn't even mention thyroid. I'm not sure why I didn't have it on the hormone chart. I should have, but I mean, we see thyroid issues even well before perimenopause. Thyroid's the big one. And I did a training recently. It was a free training. So if you want me to find that for you, I can, where we talked about lifestyle and supporting your thyroid as well. A lot of, all but one client of mine so far was able to deal with thyroid issues naturally. One client just had a very hard time medically. And then some people don't have a thyroid, right? So there's things like that. They have it taken out. Anyway, this is the myth that we want to question. And so meet Shannon, and don't worry, this her testimonial will be clear on her last slide. It's on purpose. Okay, so she also relied on specific diets, low carb, keto, wasn't tracking, prone to binge eating. You guys see a pattern? Like not tracking, so you don't have awareness, relying on cutting foods, prone to binge eating, okay? Wasn't eating fruits and veggies, wasn't strength training, no motivation, felt puffy, tired, crabby. So in some of these, there's obvious things like, okay, well, she wasn't strength training. Of course, she's having issues, but this isn't obvious to everybody. And some people think that they're strength training and they're not. So she thought the problem was hormones and a broken metabolism. And broken typically means like, no matter what I do, no matter how much I cut, my metabolism seems to like go with the food and I can't actually lose weight. That she needed to eliminate foods to avoid binging. She wasn't exercising enough. She couldn't lift weights due to a low back injury. So here's the example of where like being scared or worried about safety and a lack of motivation. Excuse me. The real problem was she wasn't strength training. She didn't have enough carbs or protein to fuel performance, but necessarily she was, probably scared of eating too much given how her body was responding without the training. Unsustainable diets, not addressing stress, and training fasted occasionally or in a low energy state. And I call that out specifically because I'm not a fan of fasted training. And that's another myth I actually hear a lot, especially for women over 40. For some reason, like, you got to do fasted training. That's going to burn all your fat. Not true. So the result, you could read her thing. I might read a little bit of it, but she decreased her body. So she was just getting started here. This is an example. And again, I'm showing you realistic, real life examples, not like huge, massive, Instagram transformations here. And she's got more to go, but she's made the changes that give her the results that she never could get before. And now she knows she could just keep doing that. And over time and with patience, she'll get ultimately where she wants to be, action-oriented goals. So she decreased her body fat, lost 10 pounds of fat, gained 3 pounds of muscle, reduced visceral fat by 16%, feels slimmer, more energy, happier, clothes fit better. Husband noticed she looked more toned. All right. And then if you look on the right, I'll just read a little bit of the top. I feel my hormones are better than they were before starting to lift. I just feel better. Like that's worth it right there for a lot of you. I mean, for me, that would be worth it just to feel better. My body fat has gone down, more muscle. My visceral fat's gone down. Had I known I would love it so much and gain so much energy, I would have started long ago, right? Well, we can't go back in time. So start now, start today. I can't say enough about how it's changed my life for the better. And then, all the other changes that I kind of mentioned over here. Upper body's never been big, but I can see my back fat has gone down. It's those little things that you might care about as an individual about your body. Okay. Something in the chat. Let me just see what it says here. Gain 3 pounds of muscle. Yes, I know I'm kind of like skipping over these, but that's massive, right? And for a woman, women have a smaller absolute gain versus men, so percentage wise, but that's huge. And you saw in our second example how she gained 10 pounds, but didn't gain fat. It was mostly muscle, and that was over a few cycles of training. Yeah, always fun to see that. So the hormone myth busted. Hormones are often a symptom, not the cause. I think this is important. This is like a very empowering statement. This is not denying that hormones can also cause issues. This is not gaslighting in any way. This is saying that you have power and you can do everything possible to support your hormones. And then once you do, if there are still issues, great. We've got medicine for that. We've got HRT. Wonderful. Nutrition, muscle mass, sleep, stress all affect your hormones more than the aging itself. And again, this is just statistically speaking for most women. If you took most women and you said, let's clean these things up and reduce your systemic stress, you'll find that change far outweighs any negative change being caused by the hormones. Prolonged dieting is often the biggest hormone culprit, low energy. And this is a temporary thing, but a lot of women think it's kind of a permanent because you've been dieting year after year after year. So if you start dieting in your 20s and every year you're trying to diet, you're almost always in a low energy state, which means even if you're not losing weight, you're at a metabolic level that's below where your set point is or where you could be if you just ate a bit more. But of course, you're afraid of eating because you're afraid of gaining weight. And of course, if you did eat more and you're not tracking, you're not sure how much more to eat. And then when you do eat more, it's not enough protein, right? And on and on and on and on. You kind of pile all these things together. That's where all the frustration comes from. So focusing on building muscle and nourishing your body while dieting only infrequently and moderately for short durations to the effect of no more than, say, 2 to 4 months out of the year, which I think one of you had answered in the chat. So small, consistent lifestyle changes far outweigh a quick fix results now approach. And I think most of you who signed up for this, or if not all of you who found me through our ecosystem, are probably familiar with a lot of this, but it's good to be reminded regardless. And so you are in control. Don't let hormones be an excuse. Assume that they're not the problem. That's what I would say. Assume that they're not the problem, and then take action. And then with whatever's left, you'll have the information to know what remains as the problem, hormone wise. Okay, so we're not quite at the end. I'm going to talk about what you learned, then I'm going to go through the bonuses, and then we'll do the Q&A. In the meantime, Feel free to start throwing questions in the chat and I will reserve answering them. But even if you have specific questions for you or about macros or things like that, we are going to talk about the action plan in a second. So what did you learn? Hold on. I have some, I want to get you guys engaged on this. All right. Before I do that, in the chat, which myth resonated with you the most of those? Diet, exercise, or hormones? You can just say one word or you can like elaborate. Which resonated with you the most that's kind of in the bucket of where you feel like you have some opportunity? Hormones. Diet. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the hormones are a big one, right? We talk about, obviously, hormones and menopause. Diet. Okay. This also lets me know like where you're coming from to begin with. Hormone seems less hopeless now. Good. Yes. It's not hopeless at all. It's very hopeful. You can make tremendous strides. Exercise more is not better. It's a big one. And we'll talk about the action plan in a bit, but like the main thing that comes to mind with exercise is prioritizing the types of exercise for what you want, right? Like if just because you love your group class, but you want to build muscle, you have to sit down and say, to get this, I need to reverse engineer and do this. If the group classes don't support the building muscle, it's not the number one priority. Once you get the number one priority in there and you've got room in your stress bucket for a group class or two and you like it, hey, maybe it fits in there. Don't need to worry much about the scale. Focus on eating well, strength training, keeping stress managed mindfully. Good. Okay, let's get into what you learned and the plan, and then I have a couple more questions to get you guys engaged on a little bit more reflection here. All right, so you learned how the diet myth and restrictive eating leads to decreased metabolism, nutrient deficiencies, rebound weight gain. In fact, we didn't even cover all those aspects, but I just wanted to mention that. And instead, we want to nourish our body with plenty of calories, like not dieting most of the time. Balanced macros. We can get into macros in a bit. More time not dieting, right? And not just to support your hormones, but to support the things that support your hormones, your training, your muscle, and so on. The exercise myth, why hours of cardio sabotage your fat loss, they increase your stress, accelerate your muscle loss. And instead we want to prioritize, so there's the word, not exclusively do it, but prioritize strength training and strategic cardio for your metabolism and your body composition. And then how blaming hormones might be keeping you stuck. And I really do like phrasing it that way. Again, not trying to gaslight anyone, but just to say like, well, because of my hormones XYZ, it kind of takes the power away from you, doesn't it? Because then you're like, well, what can I do about it? But you can. So you can use lifestyle changes to reduce stress. There's the word stress again, to increase your metabolism and hormones. So what does the action plan look like? And again, this is a 1 hour training. So, you know, when we work with clients or in our group coaching program, there's a whole onboarding that goes through each section. There's a whole nutrition plan, like, and so what I'm giving you along with this training is a guide, but also a Google sheet that has all the pillars and sub-pillars of things that you can put together for your own personalized action plan. So the big one, tracking. All right, so we mentioned all 3 scenarios. They were not tracking. They weren't aware. Why do we track? Anybody throw in the chat. Why do we track? Because this is an important question. I want to see your understanding of this. Why do we want to track food? The number one reason we want to track food. If your goal is fat loss, if your goal is muscle, whatever. Awareness. Awareness is big for me. To empower us to know that we're consuming and make real changes. So we know what we're actually eating. Data, knowledge. Good. Now, what does that give you? So you guys are right. Like, awareness is the number one reason. What does that then give? What is the next thing that logically gives you? Like, what can you do with that information? Adjust. How to adjust? Okay. recognition of what needs to change. Make changes. Yeah. Okay, good. So you guys are talking it through. That's exactly what I'm trying to get to. Behavior change and skill development is what we're trying to get out of this. I'm glad nobody said to hit your macros. Okay. And maybe you know, because I'm kind of asking these what seem like simple questions that are like trick questions a little bit. I don't know if any of you guys use Threads, but Eric Helms, Dr. Eric Helms, just posted something like literally hours ago about this topic. And I was like, oh, that's timely. It was about how, you know what? Give me a second, because it was good. It's related to this. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, here we go. Found it. Hitting macros to achieve a goal isn't the same as tracking your habitual diet. The former is behavior modification to achieve an outcome. The latter is learning about your behavior. Unfortunately, many do the first without ever doing the second. Tracking is a skill. You make mistakes. You learn about food, nutrients, your habits, and improve over time. Climbing this steep learning curve is stressful friction when your goals are on the line, but climbing it is the goal when you're tracking to learn. Wise words from a wise guy that I thought was really timely, and that's exactly what we were going with here for tracking. So 90% of people who reach out to me for like a free call, or they're just asking for advice, the first question I almost always ask is, are you tracking? And now a lot of them come to me like, hold on, I'm using Macro Factor, I'm tracking. Here's my question. And they're like, okay, let's go to the next thing. So if you're not doing it already, start tracking. You can use whatever tool you want. You know, you could use paper, it doesn't matter. It's awareness. You don't even have to track calories and weigh things. You could just track what you're eating to get awareness, including those Fridays and Saturdays and those quote unquote cheat meals. So if you track, that's going to be a starting point to everything else. And I found that a lot of clients will track and start changing their behaviors on their own without me telling them what to do. I give them a guide. I give them guidance. We come up with a plan. We understand our rate of loss, our goal, you know, all that stuff. But then they will naturally change. And I want that, because that's power, right? That's power in your hands of making your own choice. So then along with the tracking, one of the things you can do right away is start to have protein and fiber with every meal and prioritize whole foods, right? I'm just using a big general statement, but really that alone is a game changer. So, and if you're doing both, you can then track the protein and then see what the protein is. And then you'll know, geez, I'm like half the protein I need to be. That's a game changer. Next, of course, we got to strength train. By the way, none of this is going to be super surprising. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I don't have any like, I was going to have a whole slide of bonus myths in here. Bonus myths. Like if you guys listen to podcasts about menopause, I don't know if you like have that as a keyword, but I check it out a lot of times. And sometimes there's so much attention paid to like the 1%, like gut health. I'm a huge fan of, I'm a huge fan of prioritizing gut health, but I would rather you just like eat more fruits and vegetables and get fiber. And guess what? That's going to naturally help with your gut health. So like, I'd rather start from the basics rather than work toward the 1%. So anyway, these are the basics. So strength train 3 to 4 times a week. You could train 2 days a week, and it might be what you need if you're doing too much. And you could start there. Maybe you don't have the equipment. Maybe you can't get the gym, whatever. Don't make any excuses. If you can't do 3, but you could do 2, do 2. But I've definitely found that 3 or 4 is optimal. 3 is optimal usually for a beginner, and then 4 after you've been training like 6 to 12 months or so. And this has to be heavy weights, and heavy is a very subjective term, but it's, you know, anywhere from, I'll say 3 to 8 reps when you get started. And then it kind of inches up to a wider rep range as you get more advanced. So that's working around 75 to 90% of your maximum capability for that lift, whatever it is. Doing very time and body efficient lifts. So these would be compound lifts, things that use multiple joints. A lot of you may already know this stuff, but I wanted to find, just so you know, a compound lift uses multiple joints. It's typically something that has a natural movement pattern with your whole body. So squatting, picking stuff up, that's a deadlift. Pushing things over your head, that's an overhead press or a shoulder press. And laying down and pushing, which gives you the vertical press. Which, by the way, a bench press emulates pushing something forward, like against a wall, but they don't have a good machine to do that. So things like that will save you a lot of time. They won't overstress you because you're not going to have to do too many of them. You can get in and out of the gym in 30 to 45 minutes, and you can build a lot of strength and muscle and recover well. And you can squat 3 days a week doing that. You can deadlift 3 days a week when you're a beginner, things like that. So doing that, and then progressive overload is actually increasing something every time you do that session in the gym. So increasing the weight or increasing the reps or both. And I have a ton of content where this came from to learn more about strength training. Okay, so cardio, all cardio. I think of it as a prioritization. I think walking is prioritized, is priority number one. So you've got strength training at the top, then you've got walking, and then you've got everything else. So if you're like, well, I can't fit in my strength training sessions, then that tells me then you don't even have time for walking or cardio either, do you? And if you're like, well, no, but I do this, that, okay, then you have time for strength training. Let's do that first. But yeah, so you've got your strength training, your walking, then your strategic cardio. Walking, if you're currently getting 4,000 steps a day, add 2,000 steps a day for the next week or two and get consistent. Now, how do I like adding steps? Not by adding steps. I like adding steps by adding an activity that I enjoy that gives me steps. And if anybody feels like they don't get enough steps right now, put in the chat and tell me what you're going to do to get more steps. Like let's start taking accountability for ourselves right now and thinking about what we're going to do, what we're going to take action on. The strategic cardio piece is important because we don't want to overdo it. We don't want to get stressed, but I also don't want to exclude things that you enjoy. If you like playing pickleball, if you like the Peloton, if you like even the group classes or the boot camps or whatever, you can probably fit in a little bit of that and don't overdo it. A good rule of thumb is no more than half the time you lift doing medium and intensity cardio. That's everything from biking to swimming to the group stuff. Your favorite YouTube, programmer that's not really a strength thing, but more of a just move around. Yoga, Pilates, you get the idea. If you enjoy them, do them. Now, I've had clients who are hesitant to strength train because they think it'll be boring, or maybe they have to do it at home because that's the only way to get an effective workout. And I'll say, okay, let's do 2 times a week and let's keep the other 2 days for your group class because you get mental health benefits out of it. You enjoy it, social, all that. They start progressing and getting strong on the strength training. Guess what happens? They really start to love that and maybe want to do that more. And now it goes to 3 days a week and maybe 1 day of cardio, and then maybe the cardio goes away or not. Depends. Anyway, I've beat a dead horse on that one. And then sleep and self-care, again, 2 huge buckets that affect your stress. That affect your stress, right? Is getting enough sleep, getting high quality sleep, and finding time for yourself. And I know that is a big ask for some people to just find the time, but it's that important. I just did a podcast recently all about sleep, and there's a million hacks, right? But the main thing is cutting out the light, having a pre-bed ritual, and being comfortable when you sleep. If you could just get those things, which just get those things might require a lot of changes for you, it'll go a long way. Not to mention doing less cardio, strength training, doing more strength training, that sometimes helps your sleep, eating more carbs, eating more food, all that. Okay, and then action-oriented goals. So I think this is a really important one, right? So anytime you're coming up with your plan, anytime you're thinking of where I want to be, I'm fine if you want to come up with, here's my end goal. What do you want? Okay, I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, why do you want to lose 20 pounds? And you go through the why until you get to a value-based goal, right? I want to be a role model for my kids, and I want to be able to play with them, and I want to be super strong or whatever. But even that goal is not enough. We've got to have action-oriented, process-oriented goals that you can get done every day so that you can get a win every day. Now, you may not get them all done every day. But we're going for 80% consistency, right? And you guys know, some of you are already in my coaching program, and we celebrate wins every week for this reason. And then even when we talk about when we do our check-in, even there's questions about roadblocks. It's all about how are we solving those and how are we building momentum, not woe is me, this thing is, in my way. It's I've identified the thing that I need to go after and attack, and now I'm going to take action. That's the positive mentality we're going for. We're ditching the all or nothing. Like, okay, Saturday came, you didn't track, you went out to eat, you had 4 drinks, you had dessert, you had the nachos, maybe you ate 4,000 calories. I don't know. What do I do? Okay, you start again the next day. You just start again the next day. You don't make it up. You don't dwell on it. You own up to it. You acknowledge it, but then you go to the next day, right? A lot of mindset stuff. And then of course, ask for help, please. Somebody, we're going to, in one of the bonuses today, I'm going to talk about how we increase our likelihood of getting our goals. And this is related to it somewhat. But a good friend, family member, community, a coach. The thing with friends and family is you've got to pick the right ones. You know what I'm saying? You've got to pick the ones that know what you're trying to do and actually support it. So you could have a loving spouse who makes dinner, or you make dinner for the family, but if they don't eat the same way you do, or they don't have the same goal, there's a lot of friction there, and it's maybe not the best person to look for as an accountability partner, right? So you've got to find someone who's fully aligned with this. And then notice I'm leaving this one to the very end. If necessary for fat loss, if you have to, by the way, you can use a deficit and go into a calorie deficit and actually do dieting, if you want to call it that, once you've got everything else dialed in, right? And I know it seems like a lot, but like, this is your body and this is your life. And this is why we want to ask for help too, because it is a lot. Okay, so before I go to the bonuses, I want to ask a question in the chat. Based on all this, because I know it's a lot, it really is a lot. What is one thing, one consistent thing that you're going to implement based on everything you've heard in this workshop? And I'm not going to judge you for what level you put it at. Like, it can be a goal, it could be a big thing, it could be small, it could be something that you're just going to do today, tonight, tomorrow. Anything. Put one thing in the chat that you've been thinking about, your brain's been going, and you're like, I got to do this. Start tracking again. Yes. All right. Nice. More steps and managing sleep. So you've got some opportunities there. Okay. We're going to break that down a little further in a bit. What else? I see some typing going on here. And if you're at home watching this on the replay, don't just binge through this video. You paid for this. Take advantage of it. Take action. This is part of the motivation and coaching you get out of this. Okay, protein and fiber. Focus more. Yes. Protein and fiber. Hey, you know what has a lot of fiber? Speaking of food science, you guys know that the keto bread, like the low carb bread, and so here's the thing you're going to learn about me. Like, I'm a huge fan of doing what works for you and taking advantage of food science. And just because they manufactured something for the keto people doesn't mean I can't eat it too. And so I was in the grocery store the other day, and I was in the bread aisle, and I'm like, let me just see what kind of interesting things they have here. They had little tortillas, and then they had a loaf of bread. And in the past, I remember years ago, I was like doing low carb, and all that stuff was in the frozen food section. It was frozen. So they've obviously come up with ways to make it not, which means there's probably preservatives in there, obviously. But it was like keto bread. And I looked at the nutrition facts. It's, it's like 70 calories a slice versus like 110 for normal bread, but it's tiny slices, of course. And 10 grams of fiber for one slice. So basically they're just putting, what is it? Wheat germ or wheat, my gosh. My goodness, I can't even think about it. They take something out of the wheat that removes most of the carbs and energy, and what they're left with is the fiber. So it kind of makes it taste like cardboard, and also has 10 grams of fiber. So I bought it. I bought it because I'm like, I'm in a fat loss phase, and I want to throw a whole bunch of turkey on there, some cheese, maybe even a little mayonnaise, and get some fat in there because I've got this keto bread. Anyway, I'm just stalling. I'm obsessed with adding psyllium husk psyllium husk, as long as you blend it right? Because otherwise it gets all gummy. My body loves it. Also, I ask, where are my greens? Where's my protein every time I eat? Perfect. The better bagel has amazing fiber. Yeah, exactly. low carb bagels, protein fiber, not the powder. Yeah, not the powder. Got it. Okay, so let's move on. Hold on. Yeah, let's move on. So bonuses. All right. And the first bonus is going to be work for you guys. So I'm sure that's not what you expected. The first bonus is, as I promised in one of my emails, I would show you how to increase the likelihood of achieving your goals massively. Again, this is not going to be rocket science, but it's good to be reminded that there are 3 things when done in isolation will increase your goals, and when done together will amplify that, right? So I just showed them all, but having an accountability part in which we already mentioned, not just getting help, but having a person who's going to check in with you, right? So like, even if it is a friend or family member, you've got to be on the same page with them and have clarity that, hey, every, Friday, this is how we're going to, we're going to chat. We're going to have a FaceTime. We're going to send each other an email or a text on that thing that we're both holding each other accountable to. Right. And so you have the goal and you're like, I need somebody to hold me to that. All right. And of course it could be a community, a Facebook community. It could be coaching, whatever. Okay. So related to that is something called relatedness, which is part of self-determination theory. It's one of the 3 aspects of increasing someone's ability to determine their future and achieve their goals. And that is being around others who have the same goal. And you guys know this. Here you are with a bunch of people that want to do the same thing. And this isn't even really a community so much as me doing a bunch of talking and forcing you guys to answer my questions. But still, if you're in a Facebook group or if you're in our coaching program, for example, every day there's people thinking like you, trying to get the same thing, and then holding you accountable, giving you constructive criticism, rooting you on, and giving you advice. And it kind of accelerates the whole thing. It's like a hive mind, in a good way, not the Borg, but like in a good way. Right. And then the last thing is, and this one is a game changer, you got to have a due date. Now, one of my mentors, so I have a bunch of coaches, a business mentor, I had a call with him a week or 2 ago, and he's like, all right, so based on everything we talked about, give me your top 5 actions out of this. And then, by the way, that's a sign of a good coach when the coach tells you to come up with the actions and doesn't just tell you what to do, when they've explained really clearly like what we're trying to get done, but now they're like, how do you want to do it? Kind of like with food, like don't give you a meal plan, give you guidelines and let you pick what food you want to eat. So anyway, I sent him the actions. I'm like, these are really good actions. He's going to love them. First thing he said was, can you put some dates on those? I'm like, oh, right. Cause I'm like, now immediately my brain goes to, I have to commit, because even if I say a year from now, which I'm not going to do, cause I'm going to immediately disappoint him and me by looking lazy or whatever. I knew I had to prioritize and put dates on these things, because I had 5 actions. I'm like, okay, one I'm going to get done in 2 weeks, one I'm going to get done in a month, blah, blah, blah. And then I had to think, oh geez, can I get it done? What do I need to do to get there? It starts getting the mind going into planning mode, which humans are really good at. Like, it's what we do. We imagine, we plan, we think of the future, and now we're putting a date on it. So having said all that, see, I'm passionate about this stuff because like the mindset is everything with this. Here's your bonus homework right now. Think about the goal that you just told me, right? Whether it's getting more fiber or tracking or whatever. What is one action you are going to take in the next 3 days? Your deadline is 3 days from now, is Sunday or Monday. We'll just say Sunday, 2 days. Today's Thursday, right? Some of you are on the other side of the world. You confuse me. Okay. It's Thursday or Friday. So by the end of the weekend, one action you're going to take toward that change. So this is digging in further. So if you said tracking, for example, that's not going to be specific enough. Now I want you to go to the next level. What is the action you're going to take? Are you going to download an app? Are you going to set a reminder on your phone to track your first meal tomorrow? I want you to do that right now. This is kind of like this is a very important homework assignment, because this is the kind of thing you want to do for yourself when it comes to your menopausal action plan, like each thing. So I know you're thinking, and I'm talking, probably distracting you. So, I mean, I could give you a free one. If a lot of you might think, okay, I need to start tracking. It could be download macro factor. Okay, already Log today's food. Okay, good. So you're already ahead of it. All right. Oh, just now you did it on the call? Wait, where's Valerie? Is she on the camera? No. Yes, on the call. Good. All right. That's all. Well, now you got to come up with another one. Is that unfair? Is that unfair? You just did one, so now do the next one. Because that's all it's going to be is a series of actions. So let's say you want to go lift weights. You're looking at this and you haven't lifted weights, or you feel like you've been lazy or inconsistent. Okay, I will strength train again tomorrow when I get home from work around. Okay, so Courtney, you have a good program that you're following, and you know exactly what you would do for that session. And you guys can also come off mute now if you want. I'm not gonna monopolize the mic. Yes, since I'm a beginner still. Okay, cool. So you know what lifts you would do, sets and reps and all that. Because if not, I'm not judging you. If not, that would be the very first action might be, yeah, do this for the week. Right. So if it's a 3-day full body, just keep repeating. And then I will set a bedtime for 10:45 p.m. on Sunday. Okay, how are you going to do that? Is that what will get you in bed at 10:45 p.m.? Is it like a reminder? Is it something, right? I mean, I use reminders, a phone alarm. There you go. Yeah, I use alarms, reminders, send emails to myself. You should have seen my email this morning it said Meno workshop, like 10 to-do items to get ready for this thing. I wasn't procrastinating. It's just takes a lot to get to prepare for these. Phone alarm. Okay, so again, I don't see as many answers as I see people here. So hopefully you're listening and you're engaged. Those who are still here, I want to see an action you're going to take related to anything we talked about at all. There's definitely something you can improve. Okay, Rwanda, yeah, really focus on my steps. Is there something that you can definitely do every day or most days that will increase your steps that's like you'd really look forward to? Like a specific walk or a route or something? I mean, rhetorical question. Yeah, put my Apple Watch on so I can get reminders. Yeah, and it might be a simple, like for you, what you might be getting at is like, maybe it can't be regimented. It's not always possibly regimented, right? With walking, because your schedule's all over the place. Or like, even if you work from home, it's like, when do you have breaks between meetings and stuff? You might just have a reminder that's like staring you in the face, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go do something soon. I know I need better sleep, but work prohibits me getting 8 hours. Yeah. On other days, I have a routine. I'm in bed. Yeah, and I'm aware of that, Karina. Like, that's my thing about life stress. Like, there's certain things you can't change unless you really make a big change, right? Like, totally change your job, which isn't always possible. So then it's, where else do you make the improvements? And for you, it might be like, 9 hours one night, 5 hours the next, 9 hours, 5 hours. Can you eat too much fiber? 130 to 150%. What do you mean by percent? Like percent RDA? I don't even remember what that is. I mean, Jody, yeah, you can't eat too much fiber. It's going to depend on your more symptoms than anything, like your digestive symptoms, because I've had clients who eat a lot of fiber and there's no issue, and others who definitely had issues, like, like constipation, right? Not constipation, the opposite, because too much fiber makes you over-regular, let's just say. So if you're having digestive issues, I would say you could be getting too much, but if you feel great and you're satisfied with your food and like it's all from good stuff, fruits, vegetables, whole grain, seeds, nuts, I think you're good. In macro factor, they do a percentage. I see what you're saying. So yeah, macro factor is based on your weight or based on your calories. So it's like 14 grams per 1,000 calories. So like if you were eating 2,000 calories, it would be 28 grams. You're saying you're going above that, let's say by 50%. No, that's not a big deal. Going from 28 to like low 40s is, I don't think, big. When you get up to 60, 70, 80, that's where it could get problematic for people. That's a lot of fiber. I feel fine. Do a lot of fruit and vegetables. Great. That's good. I'd rather you have more than less. Yeah. And you know what you could do, Jody, as a stretch goal for you is, do you eat a lot of diversity of fiber? So I don't know if you heard my interview with Justin Cottle, the anatomy guy. Pretty cool. He talked about like having different types of apples and different types of squash and like all the different compounds, because it gives you more variety for your gut bacteria. So that could be like a stretch goal for you if you're like, well, I already get enough. Now I want to add diversity in there. Ziba, I got a bit of steps. Cool. I got a bit of steps when my watch was out of battery. I hate that I don't get credit. Oh yeah. I'm like that. I'm like that. Like I had my ring off for a long stretch or overnight one night. I'm like, I don't have my sleep data, but that's a perfectionism in us, right? I don't know. I don't know what to say there other than like it's one day. So what? It's like you forgot to track your food. You just go to the next day, right? Go by how you feel. Like, did you feel you got enough steps? Because usually I kind of know in my head, like instinctively, if I got enough. I don't know how much I'm getting. I wear a Whoop. There's no step count. Even just walking around my yard periodically will help. Oh, you don't. So Rwanda, your smartphone tracks it if you just like kept it on you. You know, it'll track your steps. But Whoop doesn't have step count, huh? I thought it had that, but okay. All right. This has been fun. Let's move on. So the second bonus is, you know, I like to give you guys all sorts of free resources because as I go along prepping for these things, there's a million notes and I then try to synthesize them into something helpful that is a resource you can refer to time and again. So you are going to get a guide that goes with this. It's typical fashion. It's a Google Doc, so I can keep it updated. And it has a lot of the same principles we talked about here. It's a little bit different format. It's not the myths. It's not the 3 myths. It's more of the different lifestyle factors and all the details under that. And then the action plan is a Google sheet that kind of goes along with that somewhat, but I wanted to make it more practical. And so again, it's grouped by, you know, you've got like training and lifestyle, nutrition with simple steps that you can take action on. And they'll be in your inbox within 24 hours. So if you don't get that, you can send me an email or there's other ways to reach me like Instagram. All right. Now, the final bonus is, I think I alluded to it in one of my emails, but I think this is pretty cool for those of you who aren't already in it. You can get 14 days free in our semi-private group coaching program called Wits and Weights Physique University. And this deal is good for the weekend. So I have it timed to expire at the end of the weekend. So if you're watching the replay, you still have a little time, hopefully. What do you get there? So you'll get, as soon as you join, there's an onboarding. And part of the onboarding is an intake, a personal intake, like I would do for one-on-one clients. And you'll get a nutrition plan from that, that I'll put together within a few days for you. There are new workout programs every month. So if you were here wondering like, how should I lift? There's a whole educational module about how to lift. There's lessons on lifting. And then there are actual programs. There's 7 different programs right now. Maybe there'll be more in the future, including a female physique focus program, and then a bunch of beginner programs and stuff in between. And I just started partnering with Boost Camp, which is a lifting app. So I load the programs right in the app and give you a link. And you can literally just click, import. You're good to go for up to the next 12 weeks with that program if you want to run it that long. But a new one drops every month. Weekly live coaching calls. So we are doing these on Tuesday in the middle of the day and Mondays in the evening, back and forth to accommodate different time zones. And that's just what they sound like. We do some training and we do some live coaching. There's a whole bunch of courses. So the courses I think are worth it just alone. And we keep adding more courses on menopause, fat loss. There's a whole physique foundations course that's probably 80% done. It's a huge, foundational course on all this stuff. Training, mindset, macros. There's a whole one about calories. You get access to a community. So think of it like a Slack community or like a private simplified Facebook community where we have channels for anything and everything you want to talk about and get support on. You check in, you post your wins, you ask questions, you do form checks, like anything you need help with. And you can tag me personally for one-on-one support. And so let me drop the link here so you guys have it. Oh, I should have dropped the other one in there, but I'll just drop here. I'm going to drop a couple links actually for different things. So first of all, I forgot to mention this for those who've never used MacroFactor. Here's a link to a YouTube video on how to download and set it up. So I walk you through all the screens, and then here's the link. So it's a special link for the coaching program if you want 2 weeks free, and then the code for 30% off. There's a separate website where you can learn more about it, or you can ask me questions. I'm going to throw you my email. Okay, if you have questions, if you're like, I'm not sure what exactly all this contains, I can send you to the page that has everything, or I could just answer your questions. So there's my email. And then, what I said in the bottom here. You can literally, okay, so with this, you're gonna jump in, you're gonna get a custom plan, you're gonna have access to everything. You can download all my guides, you can watch all my videos, and then you could just cancel. And so I'm hoping by giving you that option, cancel anytime, you're gonna find that you actually get a ton of value out of it and want to stick around for everything we have. So that's how we do it. All right, we have 10 minutes, and do you guys have questions about anything, even if it is macros? And it could be a very specific question to you. I'm game for anything. And if there's not something you're not comfortable asking kind of publicly here, being recorded, send me an email. Again, just I'm happy to answer. I'm not going to be like, join my coaching program, then I'll answer your question. Just send me an email. Who was it that asked about, at the very beginning, said, I want to learn about macros. I think. Somebody asked about that, I thought, at the beginning. Don't be shy, guys. You're either very sick of hearing from me, ready to hang up, or you learned everything you need to learn. Right, John? You got to be tired of me by now. I hope you learn something new every time.
Yeah, I've heard most of this stuff before, but it's nice to finally see in some other podcasts that they're saying the same things that you're saying about. In fact, I just had an email, I just deleted it because it was debunking the same myths you're talking about. And it's just nice that finally the message is getting out there.
Yeah.
That strength training is not going to get us bulky. It is so hard. I'm hoping that, I don't think I'm in menopause yet. I had some blood work done last year, and it didn't show any it didn't show that I'm there yet, but I quit the drinking for 2 weeks now. And I'm like, when does the fat start coming off? Because I've been drinking for decades. So 2 weeks of no drinking, I should start seeing some progress, right? And it's just slow process. Got to wait for it. But I'm doing everything else, so I'm hoping these reminders that you've got here will get me stay in the course and get back on track.
That's the statement you just said. 2 weeks of drinking, I should see some fat. Were you saying that a little tongue in cheek?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, of course.
Oh, yeah, I'm just making sure, right? Because that could be another myth, not from you.
Oh, it's going to take a long time. I know.
So, fat loss so here's the thing about alcohol, right? It's like fat loss is, you're going to lose as much fat as the calorie deficit implies combined with the training. So how does alcohol change that, right? That's what you're going to find out. And the hope is that it actually, slightly increases your expenditure. That's the key, so that you can lose on either higher calories at the same deficit or bigger deficit at the same calories. But beyond that, it should have other beneficial effects hormonally, and some of those things may take a while to kind of regulate out.
Right. Because the drinking is not stopping the metabolism of food. It's not getting in the way. So I'm hoping that will kick in at some point.
Yes. So you should have more efficiency from how you eat and what you utilize. Yeah. Found out through blood work I have low testosterone, hoping I can try to boost it naturally. Taking DHEA now. Yeah. DHEA, I'm pretty familiar with people taking that. Are you taking it in kind of the over-counter form where you get, because you could just buy that over the counter, like in pill form? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so, I mean, testosterone's an interesting one because it's a downstream effect of DHEA, but then there's also testosterone replacement, and the whole strength training thing is kind of controversial how much that actually like will increase testosterone, right? Because this whole conversation we just had today, you know, I don't think I ever once said doing this is going to like increase your estrogen back. I don't think I ever said that, right? Because that's not the point. The point is, in the context of these things decreasing, which they will, you don't want to further exacerbate their decrease, or even if it's temporary, right? Because a lot of what we do when we diet, it's temporary, but you're like adding one to the other. And testosterone is the same thing. So like one of the ways to boost it naturally is to not be dieting, right? Is to be lifting. And I think you are, like, you know, Shannon, the value of that, of eating enough and fueling and lifting. So the before and after blood work, are you going to have some meaningful change? Like you said you found out the blood work now, but what are you going to change from now to the next time? Is it just the DHEA, or is there something else you're going to change with the lifting and everything we talked about today? Oh, and I just realized you sent me a direct message and I shouldn't have just blathered all that. Okay. So I can cut that out of the video. All right. Sorry about that. Did you mean to send me a direct message and be that private? Okay. All right. I think you just did that. Jeez Louise. All right. I was saying all that and I saw the direct message thing, but sorry, you said it's okay. Cool. All right. I know you're lifting, I know, but so you got blood work. Is there going to be a change to anything other than DHEA, or is it going to be the DHEA? Because then you'll know for sure. Like, it's good if nothing else changes, right? You can tell that it's the DHEA. That's all I'm saying. I'm not telling you like that's not enough or something. Yeah. Cool. And there are other things you guys might hear about, like adaptogens, right? Ashwagandha, things like that. I mean, there's symptoms like the anxiety and depression and all that come through this. Again, I always like lifestyle first and then herbal and medication after. But there's nothing preventing you from doing the treatment in parallel, you know, if that's right for you. All right. So any last minute questions? I hope you guys got some value out of this. When I close it out, there will be probably a survey that pops up in the browser. If you don't mind taking 1 minute, it's like 3 questions. Let me know what you thought, how we can improve future workshops like this. Anything else, or otherwise we will call it a night, and then I'll send you all those bonuses within 24 hours. All right. Thank you. You're welcome. Bio-HRT is no way that could replace working out and eating healthy. No way that could replace working. Yeah, right. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome, guys. Thank you so much for coming and signing up and, you know, putting your faith in me one way or the other, and keep checking out the podcast and reaching out if you need any other help. I hope to see you guys over in WWPU. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.